State of the Union is tonight, and President Barack Obama has a few new policies to propose. He plans to fight cybercrime, expand broadband access, help people go to college, and give workers paid family leave. Some of these proposals he anticipates paying for by closing tax breaks for the wealthy. Republicans are against the tax increases. With the party in control of Congress, this lessens the likelihood that these proposals will ever turn into policies.
We're not just one good tax increase away from prosperity in this nation.
Joni Ernst will deliver the Republicans' formal response tonight. A Montana pipeline is ruptured, spilling over 50,000 gallons of oil into the Yellowstone River. The pipe that crosses the river broke Saturday, and the Bridger Pipeline Company has shut down the line. Cleanup is a slow process because the river is partially frozen. The governor declared the spill as an emergency. Residents from the nearby cities warned to only drink and cook with bottled water until the results from the water testing are in. The Supreme Court rules an Arkansas prisoner rights to keep his beard because of his Muslim faith. He was blocked by a prison policy forbidding beards other than for medical reasons. The unanimous ruling allows the prisoner to grow a half-inch beard. Correction officials argued the policy was designed to keep prisoners from hiding contraband. But in its own opinion, the court said that length beard would not seriously compromise prison safety. Federal prisons and most state prisons already allow a half-inch beard. After the break, a new hobby is slithering its way into Northwest Arkansas, and one local professor taking his unlikely skill to new heights. We'll have more on the story when we return. You're watching UATV. This weekend's violence in Denmark, the head of Copenhagen's main synagogue says violence against Jews in Europe is becoming a pattern. Met Bentau and husband Klaus were throwing a bat mitzvah party for their daughter Hannah. Meters away outside the synagogue, a Muslim gunman went on the rampage. The security guard told the family to turn off the party's music and ordered everyone downstairs. Out of the sidewalk, 2 police officers were wounded, including a volunteer synagogue guard.
Basically, we've been fearing such a thing could happen in Denmark for quite a while.
Flags flew at half-staff and Jewish schools stayed closed Monday in honor of the tragedy. Here in the United States, the American Sniper trial resumes today in Texas. On Monday, jurors heard Eddie Ray Routh's taped confession, but the 27-year-old veteran pleaded not guilty to killing Chris Kyle by the reason of insanity. In the videotape confession from 2 years ago, Eddie Ray Routh looks far different than he does today. It was recorded just after Routh surrendered to police following a car chase and a few hours after he shot and killed Chris Kyle and Chad Littlefield.
Of a psychosis. A psychosis so severe at that point in time that he did not know what he was doing was wrong.
His confession right after the killing contradicts his claim of not knowing right from wrong. At least parts of the 90-minute tape that was played in court. Prosecutors say the tape proves Routh knew what he was doing. From Kentucky to Arkansas to Tennessee and North Carolina, Mother Nature zeroed in on a new target this week, the Southeast. Brutally cold temperatures combined with a massive storm front could dump more than a foot of snow in some areas. But it's not just the snow that has officials concerned, it's the ice. It's the biggest storm so far this season. Already more than 1,000 flights have been canceled.
We want to make sure that these plows get to touch down on every street, and we want to be open tomorrow.
The storm wrapped up early this morning. Officials working to clear the roads are pleading for motorists to let them do their job. The people in D.C. are making the best of their snow days and having a little winter fun. A massive snowball fight broke out this morning in the middle of Malcolm X Park. People of all ages joined in on the fun and took advantage of the winter weather. There was another snow battle last year, but the turnout was even bigger today. It's just one massive party in New Orleans today as the city celebrates Mardi Gras for Fat Tuesday. It's the last day of the carnival season as it always falls the day before Ash Wednesday, the first day of Lent. There are dozens of floats rolling through the streets in celebration for the big day. That's what's happening in national news today. I'm Megan Bedenikovic. Last Friday, ISIS turned to social media announcing Mueller was killed in a Jordanian airstrike. U.S. officials say there is no evidence to validate claims that Jordan is responsible. An 11-year-old girl in Ohio accused of beating a 2-month-old girl to death appeared in court in shackles Monday. The girl came into court charged with the juvenile equivalent of murder. Police report they have had contact with her before because of incidents at her school, but never anything violent. The baby, the 11-year-old, and her mother were sleeping on a couch when the 11-year-old took the baby upstairs. She returned 45 minutes later with the injured baby.
The injuries were reported to us as massive brain injury, severe damage to the liver, spleen, and kidneys, and extensive internal bleeding.
Because of her age, the case will be kept in juvenile court. The most she can be held is till her 21st birthday. With more snowstorms hitting the Northeast, Boston is looking to break another record. By Monday, Boston had seen more than 62 inches of snowfall since January 15th, breaking the record for any 30-day period since 1978. Officials say it isn't the severity of the storm so much as the accumulations causing the problems.
We can handle snow, but we're running out of room to push it. And the problem is we keep on having storms and we haven't had the chance to haul any snow yet.
Yet another snow emergency means kids in Boston haven't had a full week of school in 3 weeks. Boston's Logan Airport stayed open Monday, but many of the flights were canceled. In South Boston, crews have been working around the clock, hauling snow in, piling it up, and dumping it in the snow melters in an attempt to bring order back to the city. Well, that's a look at your news around the world. I'm Megan Bedenikovic. A Secret Service source says a government employee was at the controls of the unmanned device before it went down on the lawn on one of the most protected buildings in Washington. The FAA is working to integrate drones into the U.S. airspace so they don't interfere with commercial air traffic or cause security scares.
Because the drone that landed in the White House you buy in Radio Shack. You know that there are companies like Amazon that are talking about using small drones to deliver packages.
Current regulations make it illegal for recreational drones to be flown higher than 400 feet or within 5 miles of an airport. A closer look at the law suggests the drone should have never been in the air, so it's illegal to fly such devices over the District of Columbia. A mentally disabled Georgia prisoner is set to be executed this evening. Just a few hours ago, Warren Lee Hill was denied clemency and is still scheduled to die by lethal injection at the prison in Jackson, Georgia. Despite pleas by human rights groups and legal representatives that have argued that Hill's intellectual disability should make him ineligible for the death penalty. Hill's attorney claims his client has an IQ of 70 and a young boy's emotional capacity. NAACP, the Georgia Council on Developmental Disabilities, and the Georgians for the Alternatives to the Death Penalty call the board's decision an embarrassment to the state. Iraqi forces are attacking ISIS and trying to win back a key city. ISIS has owned the city Tikrit since last June. Tikrit is best known as the birthplace of former dictator Saddam Hussein. Iraqi forces have gained some territory in the area, but still have a long road ahead of them. Australia is sending more troops to help train the Iraqi army for the fight against ISIS. About 170 members of the Australian Special Forces are already there, and 300 more plan to join soon. This follows a request from Iraq and the U.S. to contribute to the coalition training mission.
I want to stress that we haven't taken this decision lightly. Ultimately, it is Iraq that must defeat the death cult, but we do not want to leave the Iraqis on their own.
This new tactic will be important to prove how effective the coalition's training has been for the Iraqi army. But Tikrit is a big city, and Iraq has had some problems recapturing much smaller towns from ISIS in the past. The Secretary of State, John Kerry, says they're making some progress in the nuclear talks with Iran. Kerry and his Iranian counterpart are meeting in Switzerland. There's a deadline, though, in the end of March to agree on the framework for a final deal. Israel's prime minister is in Washington just a few weeks before the elections in Israel. He says that his trip is not part of a political fight or to disrespect President Obama. The House Speaker invited the Prime Minister to speak on Capitol Hill, a decision President Obama and the White House officials made clear they do not agree with. It is a concern that the administration may be working to cut a deal with Iran related to the development of a nuclear technology.
The President has made clear that it's the policy of the United States that Iran will never acquire a nuclear weapon.
The White House promises when it comes to Iran, the goals of the U.S. and Israel remain the same. A volcano in southern Chile began spewing ash and lava overnight. Villarrica's eruption continued for a few hours before calming down around sunrise. About 3,000 people were evacuated from the area. This is one of the most active volcanoes in the country, but that never stops climbers from trekking to the top every year. That's what's happening around the world today. For UATV, I'm Megan Bedenikovic. Crisis in the Mediterranean. Ship after ship full of desperate migrants sailing into trouble. The Italian Coast Guard has rescued nearly 450 migrants from one fishing boat off the coast of southern Italy. 150 of them are women and children.
My colleague Enrico and I got onto dinghies to find survivors. What we saw is terrible to say. It was a carpet of bodies.
That's just one of several rescues made in the past few days. We know now that more than 800 people were killed in the disastrous sinking of a migrant ship off Libya's coast late Saturday. The UN says some 850 were on board, only 28 survived. At least 800 people are thought to have been on board a ship that capsized in the Mediterranean on Saturday. Of those on board, 28 arrived in Sicily alive today. According to the International Organization for Migration, the number of fatalities in the Mediterranean this year is 30 times higher than it was the first 4 months of 2014. The UN's refugee agency estimates that over 1,000 people have died since January. By comparison, just under 40,000 have reached Europe alive. Ousted Egyptian President Mohamed Morsi was sentenced to 20 years in prison Tuesday on charges of inciting violence and facilitating the killing and torturing of protesters in 2012. He was the first democratically elected president of Egypt and was deposed by a military coup on July 3, 2013. This is the first trial Morsi was referred to after his removal. He is also standing trial on 3 other cases. Morsi stood trial with 14 co-defendants, including some of his presidential staff. The case is subject to appeal. Powerful winds and flash floods are causing numerous problems in the Australian state of New South Wales. Some 20,000 homes and businesses are without power. Trees are uprooted and people are being warned to stay off the roads because of flash flooding and high winds. New video shows the storm sweeping away entire homes.
We got our kids out, we're out. We have each other, we have the dogs, so we're good.
Police say the bodies of a woman and 2 men have been found in one area north of Sydney. The 2 men and woman were elderly. 2 were from an aged care facility. The other was at a home. Some good news, though, an elderly man and woman feared drowned are now recovering in a hospital. The head of the Drug Enforcement Administration is expected to resign. Sources say Michelle Leinhart is on her way out. This after a poor showing of a congressional hearing where she was asked to explain how and why agents were engaged in sex parties in Colombia funded by drug cartels. Leinhart made history as the first woman to head a field office. She became the DEA's top leader during the Bush administration and was nominated by President Obama in 2010. Democratic presidential candidate Hillary Clinton is spending another day in New Hampshire today. Clinton visited a community college in Concord where she spoke with students and educators. The former Secretary of State rolled into New Hampshire Monday, where she talked to employees of a children's furniture company in Keene. New Hampshire hosts the first presidential primary in the nation next year. Many candidates go to New Hampshire early in the campaign to round up support and votes. The jury in the American Sniper trial took less than 3 hours to reach a verdict to decide Eddie Ray Routh's fate. They are now speaking out about how they reached their decision.
We, the jury, find the defendant Eddie Ray Routh guilty of the felony offense of capital murder as charged in the indictment.
The judge immediately sentenced Routh to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Routh's attorney argued he was insane at the time of the shootings. In the closing arguments, though, prosecutors insisted Routh still knew right from wrong. The execution of a woman on death row in Georgia has been postponed until Monday. 47-year-old Kelly Renee Gissendaner was convicted in a 1997 murder plot that targeted her husband. She and her lover plotted to kill her husband, but after the murder, her lover turned her into the police. Gissendaner's execution will be the first female execution in 70 years. Police in California have arrested the truck driver involved in Tuesday's train derailment in Oxnard. They say 54-year-old Jose Alejandro Sanchez Ramirez was driving a produce truck that was hit by an oncoming Metrolink passenger train.
He was a truck driver for a company, and he was driving the vehicle in question. He was taken into custody for a felony hit-and-run violation.
Ramirez said he accidentally turned onto the railroad tracks instead of the highway, and he got stuck. The National Transportation Safety Board has sent a team to investigate the crash. 28 people on the train were hurt, and 4 were critically injured. 15 people were hurt in a house explosion in Ocean County, New Jersey yesterday. The explosion was captured on a police cruiser's dash camera. According to the mayor, residents complained of a gas odor and the workers from the gas company arrived to investigate. At some point during their investigation, the house exploded.
I thought a tractor trailer hit this porch. That's how much the house shook.
6 firefighters, 2 emergency workers, and 7 gas company workers were hurt. Authorities say the explosion leveled at least 1 home and several more were damaged. Residents from 75 homes were evacuated as a safety precaution. For the first time in 5 years, President Obama exercised his veto power. The president rejected legislation that would have given final approval to the Keystone XL oil pipeline. The planned pipeline would transport oil from Canada to the Gulf of Mexico. Advocates say the pipeline would create jobs, but opponents say there are too many environmental risks. The project has been under review by the State Department for years. A White House official said yesterday it is possible that the president could approve the pipeline once that review is finished. That's all for your news across the United States. Now back to the desk. Scary moments overnight aboard a United Airlines flight. A plane was on its way to Denver but was forced to return to Washington after a passenger rushed the cockpit. Other passengers stopped the man and authorities later took him to a hospital for evaluation. Nothing has been found to suggest a terror connection. Police in Missouri arrested a 20-year-old man in connection to the shooting of 2 police officers in Ferguson, Missouri. Jeffrey Williams was arrested late Saturday night. One of the prosecutors who says he met with Williams after his arrest claims Williams had been robbed by someone in the crowd and was randomly firing shots into the air. Other protesters are satisfied with the arresting.
Hopefully we can go back to viewing this as a non-violent protest, a chance to offer and exchange ideas.
The officers were treated for their injuries and released. Williams is being held on a cash-only $300,000 bond. Millions of Israelis are casting their votes until 10 o'clock tonight. They're looking to determine their country's next prime minister and the makeup of its parliament. The next prime minister will have to tackle the rising concerns of the high costs of living in Israel, along with other international and domestic affairs. The president of Vanuatu is asking for the world's help in the wake of a tropical cyclone Pam. The storm battered the country made up of a group of islands in the Pacific. 11 people are confirmed dead, and that number is expected to rise. Some places are flooded by the worst storms seen here in generations. Vanuatu is a place where many rely on farming to feed their families. These islanders, though, haven't wasted any time clearing debris and are reopening roads. But even their resilient spirit has clearly been shaken. If not for preparation and training, some here say the damage could have been even worse. For more than 3 decades, police have suspected millionaire Robert Durst of killing 3 people, his wife, his friend, and his neighbor. Durst was accused of killing his first wife in 1982, but with not enough evidence, Durst was never charged. The case went cold for nearly 20 years until investigators decided to take another look. They wanted to talk to a woman by the name of Susan Berman, but she was killed before they could interview her. Prosecutors now say Durst did it. Around the same time, Durst left for a rundown apartment in Galveston, Texas. He was cross-dressing and posing as a mute woman. During a taping of an HBO show, a mic captures Durst with an interesting statement.
As Durst was defending himself.
Bob Durst.
For more than 30 years, law enforcement officials.
His attorney says this isn't a confession and that his client is innocent. That's what's happening in national news today. For UATV, I'm Megan Bedenikovic. Welcome to Two Girls and a Guy. I'm Megan Bedenikovic, and joined with me today are Sarah Arnaldi and Lance Bateman. So today we're going to talk about some conflicting stories in the sports today. We're going to start off talking about the NFL draft. Now, which picks are for you, Jameis Winston or Marcus Mariota?
For me, it's going to be Mariota because I just think he's great on and off the field, and that's a big thing. And the Cleveland Browns are looking to trade up with him, and I think that's a great move on their part because they don't have a reliable quarterback right now. And choosing someone who has the reputation Mariota does, I think, is really smart.
What about you, Lance?
I'm definitely going with Jameis first pick, just because he proved how well he played in college. I mean, yeah, he's got some off-field issues, but they're nothing to be going crazy over. He hasn't killed anyone. He's not, I mean, yeah, he has like the rape allegations and whatnot, but those are kind of fading away. And like crab legs, the whole get on the table yelling inappropriate words, that's just college kid kind of stuff. He's not going to be, you don't have to worry about him when he's in the NFL.
Now, I'm with you. My pick is Jameis Winston, and there are no hard facts saying that he has done a lot of these things. You know, the rape allegations, there's not enough proof that any of that is true. And as well as with the crab legs, I read that he didn't steal them. He had like a deal with a guy and he got them for free. And he went along with saying that he stole it because then he wouldn't have been ineligible to play if he would have admitted for getting it for free. So something else that's going on is the Stanley Cup, hockey playoffs. And so who's your pick?
Well, right now the current leads are the Blackhawks and Ducks with they're both 6-1, their odds. But I personally have to go with the Rangers. I think that they've really done great this year, and I'm really excited to see how far they go. Like they're playing the Penguins, 8 seed, they're number 1. I think they're going to go far.
Rangers are one of my top teams. I see them in the Stanley Cup Finals because tonight they got Pittsburgh, and they're up 3-1 on them. And Pittsburgh just really hasn't been playing well, like coming into the end of the season. We also got Montreal up 3-1 on Ottawa. I see both those games, like Montreal and Rangers, both advancing to the next round. And also tonight we got Blues playing the Wild. I think that's going to be a big one. I think it's going to be a showdown between the Blues and the Blackhawks going into the Stanley Cup Finals because they're both hot right now. Blackhawks, you got Patty Kane coming fresh off of DL. He's healthy. He's ready. He's full of energy. Really, just all the Blackhawks players. They're made for the playoffs. You got Seabrook, Sharp. Taves hasn't been as hot as he has been, but he will get on track. And like I said, the Rangers are going to be. I think it's going to be the Rangers or the Blues are Blackhawks.
I'm all for the Blues, definitely being from St. Louis, but also they've done really well. 2 days ago, they won 6-1, and so I think they're just going to take that momentum and roll with it. So next we're going to head over to baseball, and the Royals are definitely showing us a different side so far this season. Being from Kansas City, what are you thinking about them?
I'm just disappointed. They did great last season, and they're doing really great this season, but you are representing your city, and they're not representing Kansas City well. So I think they need to get their attitudes in check and stop these fights. It's just dumb. Sit on your bench, play your game. You're getting paid to do that.
I don't know if it's their record that's getting into their heads or something. I think they're just getting big heads, especially Ventura. For his past 2 outings, he decided to have some conflicts. Like yesterday, he had a conflict with Adam Eden when Eden hit it right back to him. He had said some inappropriate words. Then earlier this week, he said something to Mike Trout. Mike Trout's about twice the size of him, and shows that he's a better athlete and that would be a pretty left-sided fight, so to say. And also, Ventura he's just being stupid. He got 3 of his players suspended not suspended, but kicked out of the game last night. He's just being very selfish with his acts. He doesn't need to be doing that. He needs to be suspended for at least 5 games, I believe.
I think that they are just being way too hot-headed. They obviously had a great postseason last year, and that's carrying over to their season now. But I think that energy that they have is good, but they need to stop being so cocky and just play what they're paid to do.
Yeah, people want to like the underdog. They're coming out as the underdog team. The people want to like them, but with their acts right now, it's hard to like them. No one wants to like the team that's starting all these fights. So I just think they need to get their act together and prove that they're a good baseball team.
All right, well, thanks a lot for joining me today, guys. I'm Megan Bedenikovic with Sarah Analdi and Lance Bateman. We'll see you next time. A day after earning SEC Player of the Week honors, sophomore Andrew Benintendi was named National Hitter of the Week by the National Collegiate Baseball Writers Association. Benintendi hit over 405 games last week, leading Arkansas to a 4-1 record. Benintendi and the Hogs also earned a number 25 national ranking as it handed Texas A&M its first series loss of the year. Benintendi is joined by Maryland pitcher Mike Shawarin as the 2 national players of the week. Benintendi and the Diamond Hogs have been cooking on the field, and soon you can cook with them. The Arkansas baseball team is set to host a pulled pork cook-off on May 9th. First pitch for the Hogs game against Tennessee starts at 6, but the cook-off competition will start at 4. Registration for the cook-off is $50, and it includes 5 tickets to the game and parking. The Diamond Hogs will now turn their attention to Mississippi State this weekend. The Hogs' 3-game series with the Bulldogs starts Friday night at 6:30 and will wrap up Sunday afternoon at 1. Mississippi State is 21-19 on the season. They are coming off 3 straight losses to Florida and have lost 7 of their last 8. The Bulldogs are 6-12 in conference play and are last in the SEC West rankings. Limited tickets for this weekend's series are still available. This weekend's 3-game series will feature many different game promotions. The first 1,000 fans to arrive at Friday's game will receive a free letter A decal to put on their car. Saturday is Dollar Hot Dog Day at Baum Stadium. The University of Arkansas will seek to set the state's record for hot dogs consumed at a baseball game. And on Sunday, the first 1,000 fans in attendance will get their own set of Razorback baseball trading cards. The Arkansas football team will honor breast cancer survivors at halftime of the Red-White Spring Game this weekend. In partner with Susan G. Komen, the Razorbacks are inviting all survivors and fighters of breast cancer to take part in the recognition during halftime. Arkansas's 2015 Red-White Spring Game will start at 1 p.m. in Donald W. Reynolds Razorback Stadium and is free and open to the public. Arkansas coach Jimmy Dykes has added the 7th member of the 2015 recruiting class with the addition of Arkansas Baptist College power forward Titania Smith. The 6'3" Smith was one of the 2 official visitors to the campus this past weekend. Smith averaged 11 points and 7 rebounds each game as a sophomore after averaging 7 points and 10 rebounds each game as a freshman. Coming up after the break, Haley will have a look at your 5-day forecast weather. Just days after releasing a video of the beheading of a Japanese journalist, ISIS has released yet another video, this one showing the execution of a Jordanian military pilot. Although the video was just released today, Jordanian state TV reports the pilot was actually killed 1 month ago. U.S. intelligence officials believe the pilot was dead well before ISIS issued the threat.
Should, in fact, this video be authentic, it's just one more indication of the viciousness and barbarity of this organization.
Senator Mitch McConnell says the U.S. needs a strategy to stop the terrorist attacks.
Every time we witness a new example of this brutality, it reminds us again that these people are not going away. And no matter how many times you declare the war on terror over, it isn't over until the terrorists relent.
King Abdullah and members of the Jordanian government have been in Washington attending bilateral meetings. The trip has been cut short and they will be returning to Jordan. So far this year, there have been more than 100 reported cases of measles in the United States, triggering a new public debate over whether or not all children should be vaccinated. Some parents fear their children developing serious illnesses or mental disorders from the vaccines.
My older son had some difficulties with some of the vaccines. We'd had one shot that he'd had where he hadn't been able to walk for 2 days, and I was concerned that he could possibly develop autism.
The debate reached Capitol Hill today, where lawmakers grilled a panel of health experts about the contagious disease and the safety of the current vaccine. The doctors insisted that vaccines save lives, and the decision is obvious.
Parents need to have some measure of choice in things as well. So that's the balance that the government has to decide.
A spike in measles cases is troubling. As medical experts say, there's a risk measles could be reestablishing itself in the United States. Novelist Harper Lee has a new book coming out, 60 Years in the Making. Go Set a Watchman will be Lee's second published book. The Pulitzer Prize winner is famous for penning To Kill a Mockingbird, released in 1960. The new book actually predates Mockingbird, though it features some of the same characters. It was written in the 1950s, but Lee says she sets it aside. A friend actually discovered the manuscript last year, so Go Set a Watchman will hit shelves July 14th. The United States and South Korea will join together for military drills Monday. This comes as North Korea prepares to test fire a new anti-ship rocket. The top U.S. commander in South Korea told Washington he has concerns. He says North Korea has several hundred ballistic missiles, one of the world's largest chemical weapons stockpiles, as well as an active cyber warfare capability. Time is running out in Washington to authorize funding for the Department of Homeland Security. If congressional leaders can't reach a deal by Friday, the agency's funding will run out. Both Republicans and Democrats agree the funding should be reauthorized. The problem is how they plan to get there.
DHS Secretary Jay Johnson urging vigilance from shoppers at Minnesota's Mall of America. The latest propaganda video from
Majority Leader plans to introduce a bill that separates DHS funding from the immigration reform. That would hopefully keep the Homeland Security in business, but at the same time force Democrats to take a stand on the president's immigration plan. Malls in the US, the UK, and Canada are on alert. The terror group called for attacks on Western shopping malls in a video over the weekend. There isn't a specific threat, but officials are taking the risk seriously. The mall's added security, and Mall of America still considers their shopping center a safe place to shop. Southern California is treating 28 people after a commuter train derailed. A hauling truck was in the path of the Metrolink commuter train when the two collided. The collision sent train cars tumbling from the tracks just northwest of Los Angeles. The driver left the scene but was later found unharmed. Of the 28 injuries, no one died, but the survivors are shaken from the experience.
So I grabbed on a pole and was sort of flipping on the pole like a flag, asking the guy across from me, "You okay? Are you okay?" Finally, the lights went out, and it just seemed like slow motion. It seemed like it took forever. We were doing about 60 miles an hour at the time. The gates were down. Engineer definitely used his brake, had the emergency brake set already. We were slowing down as we hit him.
New technology was installed on the trains that probably helped reduce the number of injuries. Bad ice in Texas caused an American Airlines jet to slide right off the runway at DFW Airport last night. The pilot hit some ice after they landed, and the jet slipped off the pavement into the grass. Luckily, 63 passengers and 5 crew members, no one was hurt. Flights were canceled the rest of Monday night and 175 more today. As of today, you can legally smoke marijuana in Alaska. Voters approved the measure to join Colorado and Washington in legalizing pot. There are limits to the law. You have to be 21 to buy it, and you can't have more than 1 ounce on you. But you are allowed to harvest up to 4 ounces in your home. That's what's happening in national news today. I'm Megan Bedenikovic.
On the hill, especially for springtime. Let's head out to Megan to see what the weather has in store for the rest of the week.
Thanks, guys. I'm live on the University of Arkansas's campus right now. Let's take a look at some of your highs for today. We hit up to 61 degrees. It was cloudy for most of the day and some winds coming through, getting ready for a thunderstorm. So your current conditions are 58 degrees right now. We have a 60% chance of thunderstorms coming in through this evening. And today at 7 a.m., it was a cool 46 degrees, cloudy all day, and by 5 p.m., it was 57 degrees. We're looking to see a sunset pretty soon at 8 p.m. here. Coming up, I'll have a look at the storms heading towards northwest Arkansas. Reporting live in Fayetteville, I'm Megan Bedenikovic.
Back, let's take a look at some thunderstorms headed our way. If you take a look down here towards Texas and Louisiana, they are suffering some severe thunderstorms, and that means high, strong winds, possibly some large hail, chance of tornadoes, and definitely down here towards Florida, they're hitting some thunderstorms as well. So let's take a look at Tuesday. Down here, the thunderstorms are moving towards the coast. You're going to see some severe thunderstorms hitting Mississippi and Alabama, and then definitely down there in Florida again. The temperatures are cooling down in Arkansas on Tuesday as the thunderstorms are rolling in. Now, if you take a look at Wednesday, it is out of Texas, Oklahoma, and the Arkansas areas, but Florida, once again, is getting hit with those thunderstorms. Dallas, on Tuesday, their temperature was 58, but as you can see on Wednesday, nice 73 degrees, and temperatures are increasing in Arkansas as well. If you take a look at our current temperatures, they're all in the 60s right around this area, Missouri and Arkansas. Down in Texas and over here in Florida, some nice warm temperatures, 80 degrees, 92 degrees. Over here, nice and chilly, all the way to 37 degrees, nice and cool over there. And if you take a look at Arkansas, all in the high 50s, the low 60s. Fayetteville is at 56, and down in Texarkana in 63 degrees. After the break, I'll have a look at your 5-day forecast. Stay tuned. Quick thinking by a pair of officers in Texas saved a man's life. Police saw an SUV on fire yesterday morning and ran to pull the young male driver out of the flames. A local firefighter guesses the flames were 800 to 1,000 degrees, temperatures that police officers do not have a tire for. Both officers say it was intense, but it's moments like this that define why they come to clock in every day. Strong winds and flash floods are washing away homes in Australia. Not far from a creek and river, the banks flooded more than a foot of rain in 24 hours. Up to 15 homes were swamped by barely any warning. The local creek rose so quickly, showground campers say they only had seconds to escape. Some had to clean the roofs for hours waiting to be saved. These homeowners barely got out.
Locals could do little but watch and count the destroyed homes.
3 residents died from the storms. The 2 men and a woman were elderly from a retirement center. The other was at home. Rescue crews struggled to get there from trees falling in their path. The drummer for AC/DC pleads guilty to a charge of threatening to kill a former employee. Phil Rudd could face up to 7 years in prison. The prosecutor says Rudd called and threatened to kill a former assistant multiple times. But Rudd's lawyer says it's all been blown out of proportion and it was just an angry phone call. The Hall of Famer didn't issue a statement, but had this to say late last year.
I'm going back to work with AC/DC and I don't care who likes it or who doesn't.
But it appears that the world touring band isn't taking him up on it. While Rudd's profile still appears on their homepage, they've been using their former drummer, Chris Slade. Meanwhile, Rudd remains on bail and is scheduled back in court at the end of June. China's Solar Impulse 2 is flying around the globe to promote green energy. The plane took off early this morning for its next stop in its around-the-world adventure. Powered by more than 17,000 solar cells on its wings, it will take 12 stops for the team to complete its journey. A Japanese maglev train set a new world record today on an environmental track. It hit 374 miles per hour, and that's over a mile in about 10 seconds. Unlike traditional trains, maglev works with magnets to push it away from the tracks and drive it forward. The fastest train in the United States is only capable of 150 miles per hour, but it usually travels at half that speed. That's what's happening around the world today. For UATV, I'm Megan Bedenikovic. The trial for the midnight shooting back in 2012 is underway. Opening statements started Monday in Aurora, Colorado. James Holmes is accused of killing 12 people and injuring 70 others during a midnight showing of The Dark Knight Rises. He faces 165 counts, including murder and attempted murder charges. Holmes is pleading not guilty by reasons of insanity. 2 psychiatrists interviewed the defendant a year apart from each other.
Both of them say the same thing. But that guy was sane when he tried to murder all those people in that theater back in July of 2012.
Will face the death penalty if he's convicted on all counts against him. Some of Iran's revolutionary patrol boats shot and took over a commercial cargo ship this morning. The boats contacted the cargo ship and directed it to divert further into the Iranian waters. When it declined, the Iranians fired and eventually boarded the vessel. There are no Americans aboard, but the U.S. Navy patrol ship and aircraft are headed over to keep watch. It's one of the hardest programs in the military, and for the first time in history, an Army Ranger class includes women. The training is being held at Fort Benning in Georgia. For the first time, women joined 200+ men for this elite school. 19 females passed a 2-week training course to even get a shot at making it to this point, the Derby Queen obstacle. As of now, 8 are still standing.
Secretly sense of pride, and I say secretly because we can't really cheer these females on, but it's definitely a humbling experience to kind of sit back and get a chance to see these women come through.
No standards have changed to accommodate women in the program. If and when these women finish the 61-day Ranger School, they receive a Ranger tab, just as the men would. But their options after that are still being assessed. Tyson Foods is the latest chicken company to phase out antibiotics in its poultry. Tyson says it hopes to remove all human antibiotics from its chicken over the next 2 years. The concern is that the use of antibiotics to treat sick chickens is making the medicine less effective in humans and contributing to the spread of drug-resistant bacteria. Apple shares opened at a record high this morning after posting one of its best quarters ever. Yesterday, Apple reported revenue of $58 billion and profits over $13 billion. iPhone sales are way up, and the buzz building over Apple's latest gadget, the Apple Watch, means the company is likely to see an even bigger boost in revenue. Another company making its billions is the NFL, except the NFL is going to start filing for taxes. The individual franchises have always been taxable, but their club fees to the NFL haven't. Today, the NFL announced it's dropping its tax-exempt status, but says the move won't make any material difference to their business. That's what's happening around the globe today. I'm Megan Bedenikovic.